Should Big Ramy retire from the sport of bodybuilding? What's up, everyone? This is Christian Duke. You're watching Strength Addicts on all social media platforms, powered by TitanMedicalCenter.com, your go-to source for all the amazing therapies, #1 in patient care, and Amazon's Fit Mag Celebrate the Female Physique. So it's an interesting question whether or not two-time Mr. Olympia Big Ramy should retire from competitive bodybuilding. Look, the fans love him. He's a freak. You know, he took 5th at last year's Mr. Olympia, 5th at this year's Arnold Classic. Those are not bad placings. You know, for a Mr. Olympia or a recently defeated Mr. Olympia, you know, 5th at the Arnold's, especially when, you know, 1st and 2nd from last year's Olympia were not there, is not good. But it's not bad. It's not terrible. And, you know, let's say, like, what are his goals, okay? If his goal is to win one more Sandow, just one more Sandow, be a 3-time Mr. Olympia like Frank Zane. He's willing to say 5 years. He's willing to do 5 more years of competitive bodybuilding, probably just 1 or 2 shows a year, Arnold and Olympia, or maybe just Olympia. That's not unreasonable. You know, it's not unreasonable. But then also he would have to say, well, I'm going to do 5 more years, but I'm not going to take a placing less than 6th at the Olympia. That's not unreasonable either, because I believe that if you're in the top 6, the top 5, you know, it's anyone's Olympia, basically. It really is. I mean, there's some years where the top 5 is that tight, where it could be any one of those top 5 guys, top 6 guys, maybe, you know. But he's going to have to basically lay out a game plan, you know, and, you know, if he starts taking less than 6, is that kind of like the memo to retire? You know, if he's on year 6 or year 7, he still doesn't want to Sandow, is that kind of like the year to retire? So I think that he needs a game plan. And I think also because of the sheer size that he's carrying, and some of it's not even muscle from what I understand. Some of it may be other things, I don't know, but he does have a lot of muscle. He does have a lot of weight. His heart's working really hard to pump blood to that massive body. And, you know, he's not super old, but as he hits the 40 mark, I think that he's going to have to really have a game plan and set in motion. You know, this is the weight that I'm going to be healthy. This is the number of years that I'm going to stay competing for that one more Sandow, if that's what he wants. I can't imagine he wants more than 1 Sandow. That would be unreasonable. But assuming that he wants 1 more Sandow, you know, validation, you know, retiring on his terms, that sort of thing, I understand. That's reasonable, you know, so getting a good weight for your health at the age that you're at, because a big difference to be 40 and 27. So get the right weight, you know, for your age, have a duration plan, 5 years, let's say, to win 1 more Sandow, and maybe only do the Olympia and never place less than 6, never be out of the top 6. You know, that would be a very, very reasonable game plan for Big Ramy. But if his game plan is, I'm going to keep going till the wheels fall off, I'm going to get bigger, I'm going to win several Olympias, I'm never going to retire, then he'll probably be burnt out within a year, maybe a year and a half. Because I think that his body, whether we want to admit it or not, as fans or critics or just whatever, I think his body is more or less giving him some red flags. You know, I think that it's safe to say that what happened at last year's Mr. Olympia wasn't a fluke. It wasn't, you know, cortisol levels. It wasn't carbs, because, you know, 2 months later in Columbus, Ohio, he got beat by guys that did not beat him at the Olympia, weren't even at the Open Olympia. Actually, and I say weren't because, in my opinion, Sean Clarita beat him. I mean, okay, he didn't on the scorecards, but Sean was pushing him really, really hard. And again, we have heard and we have seen the scorecards. The difference in points between 4th and 5th was razor thin. Nothing like that between 3rd and 4th. I mean, Andrew Jack kicked his ass. You know, Ramy edged out Sean Clarita. There's a huge difference there. There's a huge difference there. And that's no slant on my man, Sean Clarita, the 212 two-time Mr. Olympia. But Big Ramy was the open Mr. Olympia 3 months ago, pre-2022 Olympia. He was the reigning champion. He was the #1 bodybuilder in the world. And going into that 2022 Olympia, nobody thought he was going to lose the title, much less place 5th. So it's just very telling, And so I feel like, he needs to at least recognize that something is running amiss, I mean, if the Olympia wasn't enough, I think the Arnold should be, it should be pretty clear that something is running amiss and that he needs to make some changes. And I just don't know if he's going to do that. And I don't trust Dennis Wolf. Sorry, Dennis. I don't trust Dennis James to get in his ear with that type of advice. And I don't trust Chad Nichols to get in his ear with that sort of advice either. Because, I just don't. And I don't want to, elaborate on why I don't trust them for that. But I feel like he has to make the decision. This is a guy that we heard back in the Oxygen Gym days needed someone to physically get him out of bed each day to go train. He needed someone to push him like that. Now that's obviously being Mr. Olympia, but he needs to make the call. He needs to make the decision and he needs to stick by it. And like I said, if he had a reasonable game plan, there's nothing stopping him from getting another Olympia. Look at what Phil Heath is doing. Phil Heath is looking amazing, but he's been able to do speaking engagements. He's been able to write and do podcasts and not kind of give his body a bit of a rest. And he's building the size. And you got Jay Cutler in the background doing the 8 with the fingers because it's looking like Phil might come back. But what if Phil had come back in 2020, took 3rd to Brandon and Big Ramy, and then come back in 2021, and then come back in 2022, and is now trying to come back in 2023? He would be burnt out. He came back in 2020. He shut up a lot of critics. He showed an improved physique. He was top 3 in the world. He gave the fans great entertainment. And then he didn't, he took 2021 off, 2022 off. He may not come back in 2023, or he might come back in 2024, but he's not burning himself out. And that's the fear I have for Big Ramy. I feel that Big Ramy will burn himself out. And I hope I'm wrong. I really hope that I'm wrong. I hope that he has a game plan like the one I sort of laid out earlier with, X amount of years to compete, X amount of placings not to go beneath, X amount of weight to hold, and just live a very long and happy life.